How's everybody doing? This is Darren. We are here, Matthew, on Mondays. We are going to look at the gospel text coming up for September 10, which is a couple weeks away, but we're probably going to take a little break over the holiday, Labor Day. So we're going to jump into Matthew 18, which is a section of Matthew's gospel that's kind of like another short little sermon given to disciples about Christian community as understood in this gospel. So let me just go over to the text to start off with. I will remind you, if you're watching along now or later, you can leave a comment or ask a question, whatever you'd like to do, and we'll see if we can talk through it. Mark, I found out he's had a power outage, so he may or may not be able to join us tonight. And Marcy's got a little well-deserved vacation time, so we won't see her. And who knows? Leonard might pop up. We'll see. But and who knows who else might be out there. But we will soldier on here as best we can. And here is the text that we're talking about. Just to kind of give some background. So Matthew 18, of course, begins with Jesus talking to his disciples about who is the greatest in the kingdom. This story is where he brings a child before them, and basically tells them that they need to become like children, and then goes on to talk about how, the proper disposition in the community is to, make sure that you are not causing others to stumble, that you're not, leading people into doing harm or bad things through your own actions. And then the parable of the lost sheep, where, even if one is lost, the community goes out to find the one who's lost. And then that leads to this little section here that we are going to look at tonight. If your brother or sister sins, and against you here is contested, you can see that it has a kind of little note beside it here. So it's unclear whether the against you is necessarily there or not. Some people suggest that was added because Peter kind of asked the question directly about sins against me here in the next little section. But anyway, if your brother or sister sins or sins against you, go and point out the fault when the two of you are alone. If you are listened to, you have regained that one. But if you are not listened to, take one or two others along with you, so that every word may be confirmed by the evidence of 2 or 3 witnesses. If that person refuses to listen to them, tell it to the church. And if the offender refuses to listen even to the church, let such a one be to you as a Gentile and a tax collector. Truly I tell you, whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven. Again, truly I tell you, if 2 of you agree on earth about anything you ask, it will be done for you by my Father in heaven. For where 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, I am there among them. I'm going to make sure to stop these notifications from dinging in the background, first of all. But so a lot of little nuggets there in that section. Oh, here comes Leonard. All right, Leonard, you came to save me here.
No, I didn't come to save. I hope I can help. So
Yeah. How have you been?
Doing too much. Just
That's right.
in fact,
Right.
doing so much.
Right.
I didn't preach yesterday, and I think that's the first time this year I haven't preached. I
Oh,
just
really? Yeah.
I just said I'm done.
Yeah. I have some study leave coming up this coming week, so um, I'm looking forward to that. So I don't have any pressing preaching requirements coming up for this week at least. So that's something. So I'm kind of getting a little ahead of the game. So that's always good,
I don't
if
know
you can
what
do
that
it.
is. I don't know what
Yeah.
that is. I haven't experienced that in a
Right,
long.
right. Well, so far it's only this little commentary that we're doing here. Now, whether that
Yeah,
translates into me actually doing any work to put something in,
yeah.
together to actually talk about, that's a whole nother story.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Interesting text though, and
yeah, yeah,
a lot going on in 3 verses at least. As
for sure.
Christians, yeah. In
Yeah,
fact, the favorite one for low attendance, verse 20. Well, but 2 or 3 again.
right, 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 right. Yeah, I
That's
can manage that around the breakfast table.
no, but being in that rural church tradition, and especially now with people aging and the numbers being so low. And
Yeah,
when somebody says, well, why don't you think about coming together and, working together since it's 2 buildings and basically both of them empty. Oh no, wherever 2 or 3 are gathered in His name. So,
right, 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 right. It's a cure for a lot of uncomfortable
right.
uncomfortable conversations you can get out of by this one phrase, right? Yeah.
But the first part, I see that Jewish connection.
Hmm.
When somebody brings
Yeah.
charges
Right.
about witnesses and whatnot, and
Yeah. Yep.
if people would embrace this like they embrace the 2 or 3, it wouldn't be so much foolishness going on in the
Right.
church.
Right. Right.
Yeah,
No, I think that's right.
yeah.
And then some of the commentaries also mention that an additional kind of Jewish background is this part of this Leviticus text. That's you shall not you shall not hate in your heart any one of your kin. You shall reprove your neighbor, or you will incur guilt yourself. You shall not take vengeance or bear grudge against any of your people. Of course, and then verse you shall love your neighbor as yourself. I am the Lord. But that idea that there's a responsibility in Judaism to confront people who are doing wrong, that it's best for the community if people call out where
Yeah.
people are straying.
And see, a
um,
lot of people misinterpret that hate thing. They say, well, I don't hate them. But I mean, in the Jewish tradition, hate means to love less.
yeah,
So, in
right,
other words, you shouldn't love somebody less because of, what is said or what is done. And I don't know, like I always said, we mess up all the time. God still loves us. So
right,
we ought to be able
right.
to do the
Yeah,
same thing, to other people. So,
yeah, yeah. Well,
but
I think, yeah, go ahead.
no, I missed that in Leviticus because I love Leviticus, but I just, I love it because I see it also as a health document. But
Yeah,
and
yeah,
and I the one, you must be holy because I am holy,
right.
and but
Yeah, yeah. I think no, it's probably one of the things that I wish I would have come to Union at in a different time period, whenever Dr. Ballantyne was still in the midst of doing teaching on Leviticus and the kind of worship in the Torah. Um, he wrote a couple books about that, but I wasn't. He was on to Job by the time I was. By the time
yeah,
I
well,
was.
yeah, that's
Um,
what he was doing when I was there. He was supposed to be The with the when it came to Job, he supposedly knew more about Job than anyone else. My friend was studying Job under Daniel Birch, who's down in Kentucky now, with the
Mm.
Methodist Church. But,
Yeah.
well, I would have enjoyed that Leviticus because I
Yeah.
just like I went to Catholic school a little while, and
Mm-hmm.
uh, they have the catechism, and people refer to Leviticus as the catechism for Jewish
Mm.
boys. In other words, go through that
Right.
in order to have the bar mitzvah and become men and
Mm-hmm.
part of the faith. Jesus, now this just comes from Jesus because of that Jewish background.
Right. 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 Yeah. Yeah. Um, Ballantyne wrote the Leviticus commentary in the interpretation series. That,
Okay,
um, that I don't know who all else is in there, but his commentary of Leviticus in that series is really good. It's very practical, very down to earth kind of stuff that just really brings all the weirdness helps clear, helps make relevant for people today, like for people that have trouble reading it, some of the points behind what's going on, yeah, so
yeah,
it's
we
pretty
we
good.
struggle with each other when I was there. So
Oh yeah, I'm not gonna. He was my advisor, so I got to know him a little bit, but yeah, he was,
no,
yeah, a
he told me, yeah,
complicated individual.
yeah, he told me I didn't have the qualifications to come to seminary,
Right. I
and
think I think that I think in a way that was his standard line. You know what I mean? I think he tried to tell everyone that they were not worthy. I think maybe it was like one of those things where they hope that you will that you'll overcome their negative opinion of you by telling you that you're
he
you're not going to make it.
he did me a favor not knowing it because I left there and I went to a national convention and I accepted being president of a national foundation. And
Right.
then a few weeks later, I was accepted in school, but I did both. So
Right,
if
right, right. Yeah, there
I
you
was
go.
thought
There you go.
if
Yeah.
I thought I was going, I wouldn't have accepted it. I said, no, well, I'm going back to school. I can't do both.
Yeah. Oh my. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
but
yeah. Well, we'll leave his biblical scholarship and his
yeah,
personality at times in two
yeah,
different
right, right,
areas.
yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's very clear because you look at verse 17, it goes back to that Exodus thing, about two or three
Mhm.
witnesses. Uh,
Right. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
but then you get to verse 18, and that's where some folks they just go off again, talking about
Right.
what they're gonna bind up on earth and what they're gonna
Right.
bind up in heaven. And,
Right.
and, and, and this is Jesus talking about what he will do. Uh, you know,
Right.
it's amazing
Yeah.
how we can, what they say, literalize some things and
Hmm.
spiritualize others. When
Right.
it should be the reverse sometime in what we do.
Yeah. 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 You're right. It's interesting what we it's kind of like what we spiritualize and what we pretend is going to be materially manifest, those are not always the same thing,
Yeah,
yeah,
because I
that's
mean,
interesting.
I realize that God can do a whole lot of things, but if I ask and God does it, it's not it's me. It's not me. It's God. So
Right, right.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah, and I think of it in kind of like process terms, I guess, like the all of the intentions that we put you know out in the
right.
world, uh you know
Mhm.
um are taken in by God and, you know turned into the best possible, you know
Right, the best
made into the
possible.
best possible future they can be. But that doesn't always, you know, doesn't always directly manifest the way that we
Right. Yeah.
float the intention out there in the world, you know. And I think some people think of it more of a, you know, like a vending machine kind of kind of reality. You put the numbers in and you're going to get out what you what you chose.
No, take it from
Yeah.
the old man. It don't work like that. It does not work.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
I guess the two
again,
things that kind of interest me about the text the most is kind of you know, creating a community that is um serious enough about building a future together where they're willing to call each other out when someone is harming, you know, that future or forestalling that future. You know, that part um is intriguing to me. Like, how do you, you know, how do you create that kind of community that's not afraid to do that? And then oh, looks like Mark got his power back. There we go.
Can you see the light? There be
Yeah.
light.
Yeah, that's good.
but you know, Darren, that's something I don't understand. I have never understood why people in some churches just accept so much and
Right.
allow that to go on and never
Mhm.
challenge it. Uh,
Right.
you know, today is the actual anniversary of my crucifixion,
Mm.
and
What was the name of the church, Leonard?
it was
Uh-oh.
Antioch Baptist.
He wants
Okay.
he wants you to name names.
Yeah,
Okay.
and
Wow.
it's you know it like it. The same thing would happen over and over again. People would be put down and put aside,
Mm.
and
Mhm.
you know, I was gonna just leave, but a friend of mine said, "No, that makes it too easy. You know, that's just like sharpshooting
Mhm.
from a distance. You got to make them come up and stab you." And
Mhm.
they did,
Wow.
and it's amazing people who had accepted that all of those years. When that happened, that's when people started speaking out, and people
Right.
left. And so, Mark, you've been there. Most of the 90% of the people came from the other church, and I
Mm.
mean, you got
Most of the people that's what you now they came from Antioch.
right, and
Okay. Okay.
you know, when you know, I got laid out for questioning somebody putting a grant in that said you had to volunteer so many hours from work, and the church would get a grant, and the person
Mm.
never volunteered an hour, and I said that's not right. And I mean,
Mhm.
Right. Yeah.
it's just and the same thing, there was a battle between people in the youth department, and they supposed to be bringing up young Christians, and they fighting with
Mhm.
each other. I'm saying,
Right.
let's just let's
Yeah.
just pray and meditate for 30 days, and then come
Mm.
back,
Mm.
and that's at 1 o'clock, and then 10 o'clock that night, my phone rings and said, "Pastor, you wrong. One of the deacons, you put the children out of the church." So I mean, it just when I
Mm.
see this,
Right.
and it's not just me, because I've been so vocal with mine. But even though people tell me not to talk about it, other pastors have come to me and shared the
Mhm.
same
Mhm.
thing of
Right.
this not being able to go to a person in private and asking them, why did you say this about me,
Mhm.
or trying to work it
Right.
out. Is just everything turns into a campaign, and it's
Yeah.
Yeah. The battle. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's the thing about it that for me that's, you know, I just that makes me kind of just know that it's that continued work is how, you know, how do we get to the place as communities where people feel like the right thing to do is go to the person, you know, that you feel has wronged you or is in the wrong, and speak to them, in a way that what you want to restore whatever, instead of
Right.
creating, pockets here and pockets there,
Mhm.
that, like you say, it creates these campaigns that are going on, and
Yeah.
you never tried to run for anything. You just end up, fighting these battles that, didn't need to be there in the first place,
To be there. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's why when we started church, we came up with our belief statements, and one of them is we will speak in love what's in our spirits.
Mm-hmm.
And I always say, even if we don't feel like we can say it right, if we allow the Holy Spirit to lead us, it will come out right.
Yeah.
And then things will be straightened out. But we
Mhm.
just, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
But this text is also similar to the one a couple of weeks ago we were talking about with the woman and the dogs.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Again, they said, other these people treat them like Gentiles
Mm-hmm.
when they don't do right.
Right.
And I'm trying to, I'm not preaching this on Sunday because it's the church's 13th anniversary,
Mm-hmm.
and I've been requested to preach something from Mark, the demon possessed boy.
Okay.
I've been having to deal with that. But when I look at this is, I would have a real hard problem with this, treat them as Gentiles. And I realize contextually the tension between Jews and Jews who have become tax collectors. But you read the story in Luke with Zacchaeus, and Jesus goes to his house.
Yeah.
I
I like what Warren Carter had to say when he talked about that piece. I think we read this piece, we think about these folks being, in the words of the Catholic Church, excommunicated. But I think what Carter had to say was that by putting them even in that greater marginalized status, the effort is always about reconciliation, and it's just a extra effort because if you're a tax collector or a Gentile, you're really marginalized now. So I think what Carter was trying to say, it's not the point of being excommunicated, but we're continuing to work with these folks to hopefully that we can restore it. We can restore that. If I remember what he said when he with that piece.
Well, the line that he kind of says that I think is interesting about that is he says Gentiles and tax collectors are objects of mission, people to be won over to the community of disciples.
Right.
The three efforts to reconcile the person outlined in 18:15 through 17 do not finish the process. Though unspecified, restorative efforts continue. But I think it's interesting that you mentioned the woman because obviously, again, what's interesting about that phrasing is that we've seen in different instances, even in Matthew, how those very groups are people who've been, the subject of, of healing or incorporated into the community. I mean, Matthew himself, is I guess a tax collector or sitting at the sitting at the table. So I mean, it's kind of it's one of those interesting dynamics. Like how do you? It sounds a certain way, but then when you start thinking about it, it's like, wait a second, what exactly is he trying to say here?
I think what I think Carter's trying to say is that I still that even though there's been a fraction in a relationship, there's still the possibility of love. There's still the possibility of growth. We still see the positive in person. It's just like that. I can't think who sings the song, Leonard, but the song "He Saw the Best in Me." We still see. Yeah, so yeah, actually, my wife, she's the gospel person, but
right.
But we still see even though there's been sin, there's been brokenness, there's been trauma. There's still we still see the good in you, unlike um, the previous presidential administration that said that they're bringing drugs and they're bringing guns, seeing all this negative stuff in people who are outsiders. But Matthew in God and in Jesus, we still see possibility. We still see, there's still, because you have the image of God in you, even though you might have done this wrong. You still have this divine is still in you, and we still want to work on that piece.
Right. Yeah, I guess the way I think, I don't know whether it's, I don't know where I read it, but I think the other thing is kind of like, the way that you would treat Gentiles and tax collectors is recognizing that they're not necessarily inside your community, that they are choosing in a way to be, so, they're either choosing to be harmful, or they're choosing to be a part of a system that's not good, or they're, willing to be, they're actually, they're outside right now. Not that you want to keep them there, but they are, in a way that people who are not listening to the community are saying, we don't want to be a part of the community, at least not the way that you're trying to design it. We want to be a part of the community on our own terms,
It just, I guess it's almost like if somebody was contaminated and you have to isolate them for a little while, for the greater good of the rest of the body.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that that they're permanently outside, because we again we still see the possibility of a renewal. We know that you have some good qualities, but maybe you need to rethink some things. And we're going to continue to work with you as you're going through this process. But right now, for the good of the body, for the rest of the body, we can't allow this continued, borrow from, I guess, letters term, this continued infection.
Right. Yeah, quarantine kind of.
Quarantine, quarantine. Right. That's the word, quarantine.
Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah. And I think, I think the problem that a lot of times we have with texts like this is that we read them as, we always want to imagine ourselves as like the perfect, good little people and community. You know what I mean? We always want, like we take offense at like, oh, someone's sinning, and how could that be? You know what I mean? Or, oh, treat them like why would we ever, not be completely hospitable and love, and welcome everyone? It's like, we need to be more realistic about what goes on in our communities,
Right.
And
we have to be honest, we're all human, and there's conflict. There's going to be conflict. There's going to be disagreement. There's going to be some brokenness, because we're all still human,
right?
And we're all still trying to get there.
Yeah, but I don't think most people want to acknowledge that. That.
I think you're right.
Being human means you aren't perfect,
right? Well, especially when you enter the church walls, right? When you come inside that church, you better at least be able to pretend like you're perfect, at least for an hour or two. Or you ain't got any business
being your halo on. Put on your wings and your halo.
Right.
And I guess that's what's so frustrating when you hear folks say, what happens to people. And I guess some people deal with a certain amount of woundedness and church hurt, but I'm not going to go there because the same stuff is going out there, going in here. Well, I mean, we all human,
right?
There's going to be some certain degree of issues that are going on. Now, with the expectation is for a higher level of living or whatever. But hey, we're all human. We're all trying to work on every day, trying to get this thing right.
Well, and I think this is what part of what this text is trying to say is that it's really not about how we distinguish ourselves by how we deal with our humanity. We distinguish ourselves by being a community that actually is able to restore and able to reconcile. That's how we distinguish. We don't distinguish ourselves necessarily by being a completely pure and sinless community. We distinguish ourselves by being people who are actually able to reconcile with one another, without resorting to means that just reproduce, more harm for people.
Yeah. Resorting to what empire would do.
Right.
Because we are better than empire.
Right.
But what you said, Mark, about the hurt, I didn't realize how bad it was. And I was listening to this lady, Curry Newhoff was interviewing her. And she was just talking about how it manifests in so many churches, and people attacking other people.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all because of their wounds and their feeling of victimhood.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah,
I guess that's why it's so hard to dealing with the sinning of a brother or sister,
mm-hmm.
because is it really sin or is it hurt?
Right.
Right. Things people do.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I said, for me, there are two really critical ministries of the church. One is the educational ministry, but the other is this pastoral care piece.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that we all going to school, going to seminary, get asked get some training in pastoral care, but I think there needs to be more follow-up training
mm-hmm.
in pastoral care,
right?
Because there's so many people who are so wounded,
right?
Not necessarily from the church, but wounded from just other issues of life.
Well, and this is a cop out, as a pastor. But I think to me, what this text is hinting at as well is that, the community itself has a responsibility to care for one another. It's not necessarily some professionalization that needs to happen for people to be able to do that. That there's an individual or two that, that has the training to do it. There's a deep need for everyone in the community to be looking out for each other,
I agree. And I didn't mean to.
Yeah, I wasn't trying to.
All that responsibilities on
right.
on clergy, and because there are, I know, and certainly in Baptist churches, I mean, deacons, deaconess, they have some aspects of pastoral care, but I think there needs to be more training on not only for the clergy, but for the laity level also, for lay leaders on pastoral care, especially issues of mental health and things along that lines. More exposure in terms of that.
Yeah,
we need to.
Yeah.
And you see a movement of that now after COVID. It's one lady. It's called the Care Ministry, and I mean she even has a podcast. She has mental health summits because so many pastors had to deal with mental health issues during COVID, and then because they had gone through it, they realized how wounded people in the church are.
Church are,
right.
And see, I realized that because one of my members, died with COVID, and it's her nephew that's real sick now. We don't know what it is.
Wow.
And then I have another lady. Her son died, and it's just it's destroyed her. It's destroyed her.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So we got so much to deal with. I guess if we have to realize it's only how much we can do, and we've got to empower other people to do things in the church.
And that's why, and I agree with you, Darren, that it certainly is not all on clergy, and we have to empower and train folk who have certain pastoral care responsibilities, such as deacons and deaconesses in Baptist churches. And I'm not sure, Darren, how your denomination does it, but I'm sure there's some lay leaders that have some pastoral care responsibility that we provide as much training as possible, so that that they feel comfortable in those roles, and when things comes up, that they can refer folk, who are facing certain challenges.
Yeah.
Because part of that quarantine, the isolation piece that we talked about, I think can include referrals. That this is something we will walk with
Mhm.
you as you go through this process, whether it be substance abuse issues or whether it be psych, professional counseling or whatever the issue is. That we will
Mhm.
walk with you, as you go through that process.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's not an easy one, that's for sure. But I think it is clear, just from the text that you know wherever two, Leonard, this might be the antidote to what you're saying. Like wherever two or three are gathered together, there's a responsibility to tell the truth, to
Right.
confront people with with the way things are supposed to be, and anywhere where anybody's falling short, that's the responsibility. So if you find yourself if you find yourself in a group of two or three, yeah,
We got to deal true. And it reminded me of one of my favorite movies, A Few Good Men, when Jack Nicholson says, "You can't handle the truth."
right.
Then that part of our responsibility as in the church is that we have to be able to be comfortable with truth, even when it's uncomfortable.
Yeah. Let me share this little quote here from Walt oh shoot, I forgot his name now. Oh, Stanley Hauerwas. He's a Duke guy. um, but he's talking about this text, and he says, Christian discipleship requires confrontation because the peace that Jesus has established is not simply the absence of violence. The peace of Christ is nonviolent precisely because it's based on truth and truth telling. Just as love without truth cannot help but be accursed, so peace between the brothers and sisters of Jesus must be without illusion. Yet we must confess that truth is about the last thing that most of us want to know about ourselves. We may say that the truth saves, but in fact we know that any truth, particularly the truth that is Jesus, is as disturbing as it is fulfilling. That is why Jesus insists that those who would follow him cannot let sins go unchallenged. If we fail to challenge one another in our sins, we in fact abandon one another in our sin. We show how little we love our brother and sister by our refusal to engage in the hard work of reconciliation.
Yeah, and just like what young people need training in conflict resolution. I think in the church we need more training in conflict resolution.
Right. Yeah.
But
I think
we don't want to address the truth, though. It's that's what I like that statement. And someone else says it in another way, because I think I've quoted before. That when they talk about peace, that it's not just the absence of violence. It's
right.
you gotta deal with things, but folk just want to deal. They don't want to do. I don't.
Yeah.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
I don't know where you all ever met Jonathan Davis, but he had a study corral over at UPS, and he was pastoring a church down in Urbana, and we had a month-long Bible study on race, and we went back and forth between the black and white churches. And when we got to the very end, as the black people said, well, all we got to do is love. They didn't want to deal with the truth. They didn't want to offend anybody.
Right.
And because they had never been in Urbana Baptist Church, it was so funny. The night we went there, black folk from all over the county came just to say they went into the church, and they'd never been in the church.
Wow.
Mark, I would get scolded because I said that black people would say, well, you brave enough to go to Urbana and eat? I said, I'll go anywhere.
Right.
But we, we talk about the truth away from the situation, but when it comes to dealing with it, we don't want to talk about it. We want to avoid it.
And that's what makes me so upset. When we talk about America, I mean, America just does not want to handle the truth of who it really is in its history. I mean, we saw its ugly head again in Jacksonville. I mean, America just not we just want to cover it up and clean it and make it pretty. But I mean, the truth is, America was built on the backs of racism. It really was.
Right.
It really is.
Yeah.
And we just don't want to face that truth.
Mhm.
It's ugly. It's hard, but it's the truth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's why
Well,
I think I like the idea that maybe that against you is an addition. You know, that the original text just reads, if your brother and sister sin, you know, because in a way, part of the responsibility of the community is not just to legislate against, like, you know, internal harm that people are doing, but the way that the people in the community are harming, you know,
yeah.
everyone, you know, and it's
Right.
I mean, especially for people, you know, for us, for me as a member in, you know, of a white church, for us as a community to begin to tell each other the truth, you know, about how we participate in sin,
Right.
even through our omission of confronting things, you know, or our, you know, apathy about certain things, you know, is important, you know, that to be a true place where Jesus' presence might be happy to be. You know,
that's what Jamar Tinsby was trying to do in his book, Color of Compromise. I mean, it's just beyond that the church was complicit in racism and in structures that oppress people. I mean, it's not pretty, but we got to deal with it.
Right.
You know,
Right.
if there's ever going to be healing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Mark, I sent you that email yesterday. Did I? About the challenges that pastors in white churches have.
I got that. Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
I need to send that to you too, Darren.
All right.
So you can read.
Yeah.
Because it was very moving to me.
Mm-hmm.
It was very moving to read that, and
Mm-hmm.
how you know, I thought I had to be careful about what I said, but you know, I've gotten to the point now where I'm so old, it doesn't matter.
Right.
But it gave me a greater appreciation, because how I want to say, a lot of times I would go to the association meetings and I would say certain things, and the director of missions would say, "Well, you know, Leonard, you got a chain of pharmacies. You can say what you
right. You
say."
yeah. You got a backup. Yeah.
He said, but these guys, you know, that's if they say the wrong thing, they don't have a church anymore.
They don't have a church anymore.
Yeah. And it's interesting, you know, because I mean, I think like in the mainline kind of denominations, the, you know, the kind of older white Methodists, you know, Presbyterian, so on and so forth. You know, they take care of their pastors so well. You know, you have insurance, you have a decent salary, not, you know, nothing outrageous, but, you know, decent insurance. It's kind of hard to get rid of you normally. You know, they have put things in place, you know, for that. But in a way, you know, sometimes because you're so well taken care of, you know, it's hard, because, you know, how are you gonna find something like, you know, how are you gonna replace that, you know? And you know, in the Presbyterian Church, we have an incredible pension. You know, I mean, they have a great program. You know, they have a great program. So, I mean, it encourages you to stick it out for as long as you can.
Wow.
You know, because you know, and then if you end up on the outside of that, that's the, you know, that's that. You know what I mean? You know, so it's interesting. I mean, yeah, I don't know.
And
I'm not comparing myself to either or, but I know that there's just a different, it's a difficulty in a different way, you know?
Yeah.
And the good thing about your pension, unlike mine, you know, you can count it as a housing allowance even after you stop preaching. You know, Mark, which is not taxable. You know?
Yeah. It's not taxable. Wow. That's a big difference. Yeah.
Well, as of right now, They've been trying to come
Well,
after that for a little while now.
Oh, you're trying to change that?
Yeah. They
Really? Wow. Who's they? You talking about IRS? Or you talking about?
no,
well, they can. I
people,
mean, I think obviously there are people who abuse this
Yeah.
this thing. I mean,
yeah,
there's these megachurch pastors who have these like $3 million homes that they're not paying. You know what I mean? They're not paying their mortgage on. I mean, they're not paying taxes on the mortgage. On the mortgage
Wow.
up. So I mean, they people gets people's gets people a little upset. And of
Wow.
course, I mean, but based on this text, we probably should be calling them out as well.
Yeah.
You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So, but
that
yeah,
doesn't affect pastors a little poor church like mine.
yeah,
It doesn't amount to much at the end of the year.
yeah, right,
It's-
right, yeah. Oh, I don't know. Yeah,
Wow.
But no, real
I,
interesting. And Darren, I want to help y'all for helping me. Mark
yeah.
enjoyed that sermon. You remember the one I preached on? And I read
Yeah.
even
Yeah.
the article for the newspaper. I titled it on othering, using that text. How we
Oh,
other
okay.
people.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah, I still
I'll
haven't
see
gone
him
and
in-
watched that. I said something to Deb just yesterday. I said, man, I still got to go and listen to. I still got to go and listen to Leonard's sermon on the thing we talked about. Yeah.
Don't listen to my wife first, because you'll say, no, she really can preach. She's never been to seminary.
Right.
You need to let her take over.
Well, speaking of potentially getting yourself in hot water, the others that I decided to talk about with that text were Christian socialists. So
Oh.
somehow I made it out all right. So yeah.
Yeah, well, we other everybody, so
Yeah.
nothing new. And
Well, I think for me, it's kind of like, I just feel like that we get in this, I just get so, I think the church is just so, just gets so caught up in the propaganda that people, put out that makes it, that they go along with. I mean, we're on the verge of nuclear wars. We spend so much on our military just because we're afraid of this threat, of this other economic system or whatever. You know what I mean? And it's just, especially since we just had the pastors from Cuba come to visit us. I mean, these are people who, maybe I won't speak for them, but like there are plenty of Christian churches that celebrate when revolutions happen in their country, that are socialists, and when socialist governments come in, so how can we as Christian people with a different, even if we embrace a different economic system, how can we pretend like we are going to sit in judgment of other, of our Christian brothers and sisters? You know what I mean?
To me, all that goes back to understanding the truth of the truth, especially when you read some like Gutierrez and the liberation theology,
Right.
the truth of how first world economies contributed to Latin American economic problems, which led to the political problems.
Right.
We don't want to face truth. We just don't want to.
Yeah.
We just don't want to.
Yeah. Well, and yeah, and I think and this text. I mean, you might not want to take it this broadly, this text, but I mean, we have had a really hard time in this country. First of all, we can't admit, how everything's founded on racism, but we have a hard time admitting that a lot of the prosperity that we enjoy is because we take it from some, from Africa and Latin America, and from we are literally extracting it from them so that we can enjoy it,
and now that we face this tremendous worldwide global existential threat, we again don't want to face truth. We again want to put our heads in the sand.
Yeah. Well, before we get each other in too much trouble. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm too old, and then if I say something, they say, "Well, he crazy anyway," so I can't get
Right.
Oh boy. Mm-mm-mm.
Well, I mean, I think there is an advantage. I think in many of the churches nowadays that the bad thing about churches getting older and no young people coming to church is that obviously the future seems limited, but the flip side is that a lot of people in churches are in the same position that you're what can you do to me now? I can think and do whatever I want to do. I don't have any, so it is kind of an interesting time, when people are at a place in their life where they're free to think and do and act as they will, because there's not much you can do to them at this point. So
I thank
it's kind
God
of fun in a way.
For my online members. They're younger than they're younger folks. I can't get them to move to Hartfield.
Right.
Because many of them support better than the members who are right there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, y'all, I hope you have a good Labor Day weekend. Hope you plan to not labor too much.
Little as possible. So not meet next week, right?
Yeah, take a week off and then
okay.
So, I think the text that comes after this one is the one right after it about Peter asking about forgiveness. Is the next text. Then it jumps to 20.
Yeah,
then the one after that. Sorry, what'd you say?
Somebody asked, Cheryl asked, she'd like to be able to access the sermon that I mentioned. And the church is New Hope Fellowship in Hartfield, Virginia. And why is it? The title, I just sent you the newspaper article I wrote. And the title of the sermon is How Religious People See Each Other, Matthew 15:10 through 28. But New Hope Fellowship, Hartfield, Virginia. And if you have problems, you may want to go to my Facebook page, Leonard Edlow, which is open. And the last name is Edloe. And you'll be able to flip over to the church. And it was preached last Sunday, which was, I didn't put the date on here, but it was not yesterday, but the week before. And you can check out my wife if you want to. She's a good preacher. I have the theological training. She has the the natural gift. Okay.
So you have it on your site too.
Well, it's not on the church website. I've got to work on some things there. But
I mean, you on your Facebook, you can find the.
Well, you can find the right New Hope Fellowship because.
Right.
There's several of them here. There's several of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
And then just go there, and then we have our own YouTube page also. So
all right.
Most of the times the sermons are on there. My technician person.
I think I found the right. I'm gonna.
Yeah, the picture of the church on the front.
I'll drop the link in here. You found the link too.
That's the link.
There's the YouTube link. All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
YouTube link. Yeah.
Actually, I don't know if I'll have to put it. I'm going to put it over here too, because I don't think that. I don't know if my posting here goes to Facebook. So
yeah, it did.
Okay. All right. Super. I'll see if I can put this. I'll put the YouTube in there too.
Okay.
Super. Now I got the link too, so I can go back and watch it. Yeah.
Look at it. Yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you, Cheryl. Jumping in there. Good to see you.
Good to see you. Hope she can jump on with us one day.
Yeah, she should.
Yeah, Cheryl, jump on with us one day. Love to conversate.
Yeah. Cheryl get you in trouble. She likes to ask the tough questions. She'll get you.
Oh, that's all right. That's all right.
Well, that's what we need today.
Right.
Yeah.
People who really ask some tough questions.
And that's what Dr. John Kennedy says. Education is now giving the right answers, but raising the relevant questions. So that's all right.
All right. Well, I'm gonna start sending you the link, Cheryl. So whenever you're ready, all right. I'll add you to the email. I'll give you the link. You jump in whenever you can.
Come on in there.
All right.
All right.
Well, good seeing you all. Thanks for jumping on. At first, I thought I was going to be all by myself, making stuff up. So, but
No, I'm gonna try not to leave you hanging.
yeah, that's right. That's good. That's good. All right.
All right, y'all.
All right. Good seeing y'all. Talk to you soon.
Good seeing y'all. Have a good holiday, everybody.
Oh, sometime, Mark, we got to come back to that zero gravity stuff you were talking about too. We'll have to bring that.
I'm serious. If you get a chance,
Yeah.
Watch it. It is an excellent piece. They did a really good job of talking about Wayne Shorter and also his life and it's I found it transforming. If it doesn't win an Emmy, I'll be surprised.
Well, I binged the first 2 episodes real quick before we started, so I only have one more to go. So we'll have to talk about it sometime.
Talk about it, sure. Yeah.
All right.
Bye, y'all.
See y'all later.